My name's Damien Payton, and along with Daniel Smalley, we're going to be spending the next around about an hour to an hour and a quarter just giving you an update on what's coming with TIA Portal version 18, some information about some new hardware products that are going to come to the market over the next 12 months, and then around some of our other webinar activities and in-person activities that we're going to be looking to host along with our distribution partners in the new year. So without further ado, we're going to step into the presentation and just a little bit around the agenda. So for the first half hour or so, it's going to be me, and I'm going to give you an update on TIA Portal version 18 or Step 7 version 18 and an update around SIMATIC Hardware. And then I'm going to pass over to Daniel, who's going to take you through WinCC Unified and new functions and features for the WinCC portfolio. And then once Daniel's completed, after around half an hour, we're going to just give a little bit of insight into future webinars and workshops. So just a little bit around me. So my name is Damien Payton, and I'm the business manager for the Siemens automation portfolio, or SIMATIC, for UK and Ireland. Daniel, who's joining me, is the business manager for our digitalization portfolio and WinCC SCADA offerings. So without further ado, let's jump into some of the details around TIA Portal version 18. So on the screen in front of you, you can see TIA Portal is our open engineering framework, and we have core parts of our portfolio that have just been upgraded to version 18. And version 18 is available to download from this link here, and it will run in trial version. So the core portfolio elements for TIA Portal are, of course, Step 7. We have Step 7 Safety, Synamics Drive, Simotion Scout, Sirius SIMAcode, and of course WinCC. And then on top of that, we have various different add-ons such as SIMATIC Energy Suite, PLC Sim Advanced. The latest version, version 5, has a lovely new user interface available to it, which will be very welcomed in some areas. We've got TIA Portal openness, so the ability to automatically create your PLC application code. Things like SIMATIC Visualization Architect, or CVARC as it's known, which allows the automatic generation of WinCC screens. So all these version 18 updates are available from the service and support website using this one link. So that includes Step 7 Safety, Unified Start Drive, and so on. SIMAcode ES and Safety, Sirius Safety aren't yet released, but if you want to go to that link, on the right-hand side of the homepage for Siemens Industry Online Support, you'll see some how-to videos. And using the how-to videos, you can then register for updates. And as soon as this software becomes available, you'll automatically get an update and get sent a link to it. So yeah, so that's it around the version 18 release. So available now. If you have a online download SUS, you will start, or you may already have had, the links to upgrade your license to version 18. If you use package media, so if you like USB sticks and DVDs to be sent through the post, you'll receive those throughout December. So obviously it's a little bit more time consuming to get the physical media out than it is to get download links sent out. If you don't have a SUS, one of the great things that we're offering at the moment is what we call a grace period. So up until the 28th of February 2023, you will be able to purchase a download-only SUS package for all of the TIA Portal elements that we looked at before. So be it Step 7, be it Safety, be it SIMAcode ES as an example. And what that SUS grace period offer will do is it will automatically send you out an upgrade to upgrade from version 17 to version 18. So we're going to put some details of the grace periods package in the notes, so you should shortly receive a PDF with the information on part numbers and where you can buy it from, and so on and so forth. I'd just like to highlight again, this is download only, so it doesn't apply to the packaged media. So I just wanted to do a quick review on effectively what TIA Portal offers us. So TIA Portal is our holistic engineering platform. It's one platform for all engineering tasks. We have one common database that allows us to configure our PLCs, our HMIs, and our drives using a standardized engineering tool. So that includes, like I say, PLCs, HMIs, drives, communication, setting up our distributed I/O for our controllers. So that's from an engineering platform perspective. Now, standardization is the key to digitalization. And within the TIA Portal portfolio, we have a library concept, and libraries again are an area where we can use libraries to standardize on our application code generation and improve our software quality. Which, of course, if we know that we're taking blocks that are tried and tested out of a library, then that's going to reduce our time to program our PLC and time to get our product to market. So we have different areas, or that we can store our libraries. We can store them locally within TIA Portal itself. We can do multi-user engineering, or with a version control interface, we can interface into things like GitHub for other version control software packages. So standardization, absolutely key. Another area that's important is integrated testing and simulation. So we have a package called Test Suite, which, as an example, if you program your application code in conjunction with our style guide, Test Suite will actually test your application code for compliance against the style guide, but it will also test for compliance against your own company's standards. But not only does it test the quality and the format of the application code, you can also do software in loop testing, as an example, with Test Suite and PLC Sim Advanced, or also hardware in loop testing using open network standards such as OPC UA, and that allows us to have a continuous integration approach. One of the key things within industry at the moment is OT-IT integration, and we're going to take a look at some new elements in the portfolio where we've got more communication capabilities within our hardware platform. But of course, it's absolutely critically important that we're both secure, so we have state-of-the-art security through TLS. We have open communication standards such as PROFINET, which would be downstream, or OPC UA, which would be upstream. Or between PLC to PLC communications, as an example. So OT-IT integration we're going to touch on. And of course, the next element would be automated workflows. So we can see here, we can automatically create application code using standard libraries that have had a full integrated testing through Test Suite. They've been tested against simulation packages such as PLC Sim Advanced and SIMIT. So we know they're good quality function blocks with no errors in them, and we can then use tools like TIA openness to automatically create our PLC application code. And then to take it one step further, we've got the tool CVARC, which allows us to automatically create our visualization platform for things like our operator panels or future SCADA add-ins. So one of my favorite things around our automated workflows is the TIA add-ins, and we'll touch on these in a future session, but these allow us to do things like serial drive commissioning, and these are areas that we can really save time in commissioning or creating our application code. So TIA add-ins are a real feature of the future, if you like. So we'll cover those in a future webinar. Multi-user engineering, so the ability to store our application code on a server and have multiple engineers working at different disciplines. So a SCADA engineer working on one area, drives engineer working another, teams working on different elements of function blocks, and that reduces the need for manual coordination across application code development when we can use multi-engineering and multi-user engineering and a project server. So that's just a little insight into some of the features and functions of TIA Portal that we'll be covering in detail over not necessarily this webinar, but over webinars that we're going to host in the future that I'll come to later on in our presentation. So one of the things that we just wanted to do quickly was just run through some new introductions into the SIMATIC Hardware portfolio. So you'll be aware it's around about 10 years now since the S7-1500 was launched and released, and it's an absolutely fabulous controller, and you'll be very pleased to hear that it's about to go through an innovation cycle. So we're going to be updating not only the firmware to version 3, but there's actually going to be a hardware release for CPUs that are between the 1511 and 1516 controllers. And we're switching to a different type of CPU manufactured by ARM, and it's a dual core controller. So core 1 is going to process the user program and diagnostic events, and the second core is going to look after our communication tasks to ensure that we're ready for the OT layer to meet the IT layer of the future, and that we can get data from our process or our machine, and it's ready to be fed up into the cloud or into Edge or for whatever types of analytics are necessary. So, of course, having offloading the communication tasks from the main core of the CPU will support more deterministic program processing. So there'll be no processing time for the first core dedicated to communication. So that core is just going to focus on the user program and diagnostic events, and the second core will be there to focus on our TCP/IP communications, our OPC UA communications, and other things that give us more operational transparency in terms of standards along the lines of MQTT. And of course, that's not forgetting our traditional communication protocols such as TCP/IP and UDP, but of course PROFINET is handled by its own dedicated ASIC anyway. So another interesting thing about the CPU is that the display firmware will no longer be separate to the main CPU firmware, so it effectively becomes a reduced engineering task to do a firmware update on the processor. So that will both encompass the CPU firmware and also the display firmware. So let's take a look in a little bit more detail around what's going to be happening with the CPUs. So effectively, we're going to have three classes of CPU. So we're going to have the low performance class, which is the 1511 and 1511F and the 1513 and 1513F, and they will have the same basic performance. So in terms of scan times, they'll be absolutely identical. The difference between them will be memory. So you can see here a little bit of insight into how much memory. So we're going up basically double the program memory and 50% more data memory. So the 1511 will go to 300K, the 1511F will be 450, and the data memory is the same. And then we've got a very similar jump in memory. So 50% more data memory, 100% more program memory for the 1513, but the CPU performance will be the same, albeit it's increased by 60% for the 1513 and a 140% improvement in execution time for the 1511. We then have the medium performance class, which is the 1515 and 1516. So the 1516 is having a 67% increase in performance. And if we look here, this is a huge performance increase on the 1515. So that will, again, it will be along the same lines or it'll be exactly the same execution time for the application code. And we've got subsequent memory increases again. Twice the memory, 50% more data memory. But you can see there that is quite a performance increase for the 1515. And of course, this is in addition to the increase in communication throughput. So I've put a link here into a great article that's been done by one of our colleagues in our headquarters, which is related to where the additional performance can be used. And the benefits that it gives in allowing our CPUs to meet automation challenges of the future. So again, this will be available in the handout, but it's a nice article to read just to give some insight into the background to the performance improvements and where they can be used. So a little insight into availability. So the 1511 and 1513 will be available to order from January, but again, I'd suggest registering on CEOS. And then you'll get the update automatically when delivery release comes available. And the 1515 and 1516 will be available from February. So there's some real performance improvements in terms of the core elements of the portfolio. The 1517 and 1518, they stay unchanged. So just to give a bit of insight, they typically have 6 megabytes of working memory, 30 megabytes of data memory. So they're real animals in terms of their automation capabilities, if you like. So I just want to hold this thought here. So the 1515 microprocessor that's having a 400% improvement in terms of its automation capabilities. We also have a new element to the portfolio, which is the 1514 SP, so a new distributed controller, which is available in T and TF functionality, but it has the same performance as the new 1515. So it's a real performant CPU, but based on the distributed controller footprint. And this device will be available from March. So, that's a really exciting device for us, something that can do both safety and technological functions within the distributed controller platform. One thing that I haven't mentioned actually is that all these new CPUs will be available to download into PLC Sim Advanced version 5, which is the latest release of PLC Sim, which is also available to download from the link provided earlier, but without the license. So another exciting addition to the portfolio, or not addition, or improvement, I should say, is we now have R1 redundancy for the S7-1500H. Now, this doesn't mean if you've already got a 1500H, you'll be able to upgrade the firmware to version 3. So that's absolutely possible. So you can take advantages of the new features and functionality by simply upgrading your existing S7-1500H or FH to version 3 firmware. So there's no hardware changes required. But this new addition allows us to, with a dual interface module, it allows us to have one interface module reporting into the first CPU and the second interface module reporting into the second CPU. And that's along the lines of the traditional MRP style networks that we had before we had this R1 development. So this is a nice new addition to the portfolio. And then we've got the hot standby link between them. Something that's really cool is we've also got some, if you know of any tunnels that are 40 kilometers long, we now have new fiber optic sync modules that can go up to 40 kilometers. And I say tunnels, but any application that you need 40 kilometers, which is quite extreme between your CPUs. But these can be used with both ET200SP, ET200 SPHA, and ET200 ISP. Can use this new R1 redundancy. And like I say, if you've got existing S7-1500Hs, you don't need to upgrade your hardware. You can simply upgrade them to version 3 firmware. And again, these can be simulated in PLC Sim Advanced version 5. So we can do R1 and S1 redundancy in PLC Sim Advanced V5. One thing that's very important to us and very important to you is compatibility and hardware compatibility. And one thing I'd just like to highlight is that the new processors are what we class as spare part compatible. And what that means is that if you've got an S7-1500 version 1.8 that was installed in 2012 as an example, if something happened to it, it got damaged in any way, you'd be able to take the memory card out of that old unit, plug it straight into a new unit, and the unit would run in compatibility mode. So you wouldn't have to do any upgrades on the application code. It's just memory card out of the old one into the new one. Granted, the new CPU will run faster, but it's what we class as spare part compatible, so no changes required in the application code. And just that's the same across the board for all the 1500 Pro CPUs, and it doesn't matter what firmware you're on, you can take from the older unit and drop the memory card into the new unit, and it will run up absolutely beautifully. Another thing just to highlight is these will be orderable from January, as I've mentioned, February and March. We'll be delivering both the new firmware versions and the old firmware versions in parallel for the first 6 months. And then after a 6-month period, all the orders that we've got in our system for the older CPUs will be substituted for the new. So that will be from typically around about August, September time. Everybody will be getting the new version 3 CPUs. So I think everybody will agree that's a real great thing to have. And more performance, the easier upgrade of firmware, and the offloading of communication tasks to allow us to easily integrate our OT layer into our IT layer and have high volumes of data throughput. So that's it from a PLC hardware perspective. And I'd just like to give some insight into what we've got coming now with WinCC Unified Comfort Panels. So Daniel's going to cover the WinCC Unified from a software perspective. He's going to touch on view of things and then through to the PC WinCC Unified applications. But I just wanted to give some insight into what's happening with the unified portfolio. And this is very important for us at the moment because there's new additions to the hardware portfolio, but also in terms of software functionality with version 18 that mean that now is the time to start looking at modernizing your WinCC comfort panel applications into WinCC unified panel applications, and we'll come to some further information on that later on. But you know, there's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't be looking at modernizing the face of our machine or the face of our process across from the comfort panels into unified right now. So a little bit of insight into what's available in the comfort panel range at the moment. So this is what they look like in the middle. They're available either branded or non-branded, and we go from 7-inch through to 21.5-inch display. Now, one of the great things about WinCC Unified is it's a common look and feel, no matter what your target platform is. So all the controls have a very similar look and feel. The sliders, the gauges, the push buttons, the alarm controls. So if you're configuring WinCC View of Things to run on the web interface on an S7 1500 controller, WinCC Unified Comfort Panel, or a full SCADA system, from an operator and both an engineering perspective, the engineering tool is exactly the same, and that's very, very important for commonality and ease of use. But yeah, some information around the core comfort panels configured into your portal. They have JavaScripting capabilities, multi-touch, typically 8,000 tags, and I've covered here standard and neutral designs. They have a comprehensive set of user interface and controls, which, as I say, it is standard across all the different hardware or software platforms. A broad range of certifications, and I think it was earlier this year, around about February, the units became compliant with ATEX Zone 2/22, DNV and Lloyd's shipping approvals. So there's some really great standards that mean that these panels can be used in lots of different applications. We can have encrypted communications. We have an industrial operating system, so we're not reliant on Microsoft as an example, and Windows CE, which have happened in the past. It's a new industrial OS operating system that runs on the panels. They have a very durable front screen, so they are industrial panels. We can have a gigabit Ethernet interface usage, independent remote access for up to 5 web clients, and they're also importantly industrial edge enabled, so we can have edge applications running on them, and we can manage them from an industrial edge management console. So I can sense the anticipation on what's coming. So there's our unified comfort panel range. Now, excitingly, we will be introducing in the new year a WinCC Unified Comfort Panel Pro variant. Now, just a couple of things around this. You can see here we have an optional expansion unit that sits on the bottom. The unit is IP65 all the way around. We can mount it from a supporting arm at the top, or a pedestal mount at the bottom, so it has multiple flexible mechanisms of mounting. We can have operator control push buttons, and these are freely configurable 22.5mm punch outs under here. We can have RFID reader on here, so we can do RFID logon into user administration within the WinCC Unified Comfort Panel setting. We can freely configure these push buttons or USB ports or key switches or even emergency stops, and these could be either hardwired buttons or they can be PROFINET enabled buttons down here. Again, it's multi-touch, standard and a neutral design, so if you want no brand logos on top, industrial edge mounted. So we've got all the same core functionality that we had on the Unified Comfort Panel, but within a Pro IP65 all the way around range. So that's a really nice device. The one that I find the most exciting, really, I guess, is the new Unified Hygiene range. So this is the equivalent of what we had in Inox in the traditional WinCC Comfort Panel portfolio. But there's some really cool things about this product. The first one that stands out to me is IP69K protection. So this is the highest available IP rating, and this means that you can power wash the unit at close range and at temperatures up to 80 degrees. So it's ideally aimed at automation tasks and industries where hygiene is a high priority. So that would be things like pharmaceutical, food and bev, chems or chemical, whatever it may be. But you can actually, with a high pressure power washer, heated up to 80 degrees, you can power wash these units from the front only. They're IP20 from the back, but they've got a nice big thick blue gasket that goes around the outside, and the bezel around here is stainless steel. So they really are a cool device. Not only are they IP69K, but they are IK10 plus. Now this is an impact standard, and IK10 plus effectively means it can take a 5K weight being dropped on it from 400 millimeters. So again, it's one of the highest impact ratings of any HMI screen, and it has glass splinter protection over the front of the panel, which means that if the screen was to get operated with a hammer or something along those lines, then there'd be no splinters of glass that would come out. It makes it ideally situated for a food and beverage or a pharmaceutical application. Other than that, it's the standard WinCC Unified Comfort Panel functionality. So industrial operating system, a wide range of units available, encrypted communications, enhanced security, so on and so forth, that's available with this particular unit. So on that note, that's an insight into what's coming over the next 6 months or so with both SIMATIC and with the unified panel range, and some more information around version 18. But without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Daniel, who's going to spend the next 30 minutes or so just talking us through what's coming new with SIMATIC software, and in particular around the WinCC Unified portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damien. Damien gave me a little bit of an introduction earlier. Daniel Smalley. I'm responsible for the software side of our industrial automation offering within factory automation. So this is where primarily the offering is software. So an example would be around our WinCC offering, our SCADA offering. This could be energy management. So we have a comprehensive energy management portfolio that I'll touch on as well. This is some of the newer topics like Industrial Edge, our virtual commissioning portfolio, and the newest, our industrial artificial intelligence portfolio. So while I primarily focus on the software, of course, one of the key strengths we have in terms of our offering is we can bring the software and the hardware together to offer a complete solution. So to highlight a slide that Damien showed us earlier, looking at the overall offering that we have from within our TIA portfolio, we've got the core offering that we can see there in the middle in light green. These are the core functionality that we have within TIA Portal. We can make the TIA Portal application specific or solution specific by the use of add-ons. So we can add additional licenses, but it's still based on the same core functionality of TIA Portal, single engineering database, and all the advantages in terms of the efficient engineering we get out of that. On the right-hand side, we can see a list of items in a different shade of blue. These are not integrated into the TIA Portal, but these are still core offerings from Siemens. These have more of an interfaced relationship within the TIA Portal. Perhaps the best known and one you may have used quite a bit would be things like the TIA selection tool. So the TIA selection tool allows us at initial concept phase to start building up a hardware architecture, maybe, or a solution provider. You want to sit with your customer, start building together an architecture to get an idea that ultimately then you can cost, so build up a bill of materials. But the philosophy we have is when we're putting data into these sort of tools, we obviously want to reuse them, so we can use that hardware configuration that we built up within the selection tool. We can just bring that directly into the TIA Portal, and we can start using that within the real project. We can see some probably newer items on there on the right hand side that I'll touch on a little bit more. One, the SIMATIC automation expansion. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. And there's a couple more down the bottom that we don't really have too much time to go into because they're pretty big topics in their own right. One that Damien's touched on, Industrial Edge, which is our new offering for IoT integration up to the cloud. So we have a Docker-based, centrally managed platform with standard applications that we can use to connect the shop floor all the way up to the top floor. And we also, on that platform, have a new WinCC offering that I'll touch on a little bit more. So the strength there of TIA is this complete environment that we can tackle all our automation tasks. One of the main things I'm going to focus on in this software update is around WinCC Unified. So we've touched upon this already. We've seen the hardware that we've got, the new comfort panel. The other side of that story is then the software side of WinCC Unified. And the reason the most of the focus on in this session on Unified is because a lot of the innovation, a lot of the new functionality has been focused around Unified. So to recap a little bit, Unified is one platform that we can support across different devices. So we start at the bottom end based on the S7-1500 CPU, so we can program WinCC Unified graphics directly onto the S7-1500 web server. We move then up to the Unified comfort panels, but importantly, it's the same environment, same look and feel that we've got. So we can support the panels there. And then, of course, the PC-based platform. So the ability to deploy WinCC Unified directly onto a PC for more advanced applications, higher scalability in terms of numbers of tags, clients, options, all these sort of things. And we'll go into a bit more detail on that. Finally, the newest addition, you can see on the right-hand side, I mentioned on the previous slide, we've introduced two new applications for Industrial Edge, covering WinCC Unified on Edge. One is a WinCC Unified web engineering application. So we can engineer the unified application completely within a web environment, so via a browser, no tier portal needed at all. And then there's a runtime application as well. So we can centrally manage this. So you could have a central management system with hundreds or thousands of devices, and you could configure and deploy WinCC Unified to these devices. So this is our new offering. But like I said, we don't have a huge amount of time to go into this topic in detail. So let's focus on the core WinCC Unified offering without Edge. Here's a nice highlight slide. We can see a number of things that we've focused on and brought to the new offering with V18. And we're going to dive into some of these topics in a little bit more detail. But one of the things I'll point out immediately, you can see on the right-hand side with the V18 release, there's over 310 new extensions and improvements that we've included just in the WinCC Unified package itself. So by all means, one of our webinars is not enough to give it complete justice. So we focused on a couple of topics. So what have we introduced? Well, we've introduced larger screens are now supported within WinCC Unified based on the PC panel. So we now support up to 20,000 by 20,000 pixel screens, because we've got more and more customers that want to generate these huge screens that they want to overlay complete factories onto, and then have the ability, using things like the zoom and declutter that we now support, to zoom in on specific plant areas, showing different levels of detail as they zoom through the layers. So a single home screen that you can really use to navigate throughout a complete plant. There's a whole lot of nice stuff on the engineering side of things, the introduction of grouping of objects, grids, the ability to customize your property favorites depending on how you like to work with WinCC Unified in an engineering environment. So there's a whole lot of new things that no doubt you'll discover once you get your SaaS contract, get it downloaded, and start playing with the system yourselves. We'll cover some of the other object items on this list in a little bit more detail. The first one of these is we've included on the standardization front the ability to use hierarchical faceplates. So this is the ability to embed faceplates within faceplates. So if you've worked with WinCC in the past, you may be familiar with our screen-in-screen concept, the concept where we can put embed a screen within a screen. This replaces that concept and works more on a an easier to standardize and reusable way of embedding faceplates within faceplates. So that includes not just the graphical representation, but as you can see on the left-hand side, this is the ability to then build up sub-UDTs. So in this example, we've got a faceplate called tank, and within tank, we've got a number of sub-faceplates, including the motors, the vessels, temperature sensors. Each of these have sub-faceplates and sub-UDTs that are then defined into a single UDT structure. So in terms of the engineering process, this means more reusable items, more reusable code. So very, very nice. And this is supported for the PC platform and the unified panels as well. Moving over to the system diagnostics, you may be familiar with this type of control on the panel side of things. So the standard comfort panels, we've now included it on the unified comfort panels, and for the PC-based unified system. One of the really appealing things about the unified environment is a lot of the common functionality. A lot of the things our customers want to do is already done using standard controls and complex controls. So the idea that we can take a standard control out of a library, drag it onto the screen that we want to display it, link it into the PLC, and then it's going to automatically make all the connections, bring all the diagnostics and everything we need to visualize that in runtime. And that's exactly the philosophy we have here with the system diagnostic control. So it gives us detailed diagnostic control down to field bus, I/O, individual I/O channels, and also pulls back the PLC diagnostic buffer. So an easy way using low code to get transparency of diagnostics on the visualization system. Moving along on the diagnostic side, we've introduced the ProDiag functionality that you may be familiar with from previous systems. So this includes, for instance, the standard control, so the standard graph control. So maybe if you're using Graph, which is our graphical programming language for step 7. So it allows us to program using step transitions. We can easily visualize those on the PC-based platform at the moment, but this is planned obviously for the unified comfort panel in a further update. And we can see where a program is maybe held at a step if there's an issue. And then what we can do is start drilling into the detail there. So there's a PLC code viewer as well. So we can, if it's held at a step, we can open up the PLC code viewer, and the PLC code viewer will then take us to visualize the logic within the PLC. So from a visualization point of view, we don't need to bring up a field PG and look into the engineering interface. We can really see where it's held, and we can look at the individual PLC code, so you can quickly see the status of any issue or which tag's holding it or anything like that. So the first level of diagnostics can be generated from the operator themselves without the need to bring in engineering or maintenance teams. Moving on, we've expanded the capability around the user management. So we've added RFID authentication for both the unified comfort panels and the unified PC based. So as it's released with version 18, we support the ability to support RFID with local users. So if you want to log on locally to the PC based unified or the panel based unified, we support RFID login. That uses the PM logon option, and we have a whole lot of Siemens readers that you can see there. So Siemens have tags and readers. We can integrate these into things like the Unified Comfort Pro panels, for instance, that Damien showed us earlier. We can integrate these in. Coming with a further update. So there's an update planned February, March-ish for next year. We will expand that RFID support to allow us to configure the RFID for users on the central user management, so UMC, but still for login on local panels and local PC-based platform. A later update, so after update 1, we will also then expand that RFID support to allow us to provide local login to remote clients. So because the remote clients are all browser-based, there's a bit more work in terms of providing that RFID support. So that will come in the V18, but following update 1, so a little later in the year, but quite a nice addition to the overall offering. Another thing we get asked about a lot is around audit, GMP compliance, 21 CFR Part 11. We do an awful lot of business on the panel side and the PC based side in pharma, in OEMs in pharma. So this is quite an important addition. We've got a lot of customers even aren't in pharma industries that want that traceability to find out who's done what when and get that log. So with the version 18 release, we've released the Unified Audit Basis and the Unified Audit Enhanced options. So we have GMP compliance on based on the basis. So that gives us audit trails for our tags, the logs, so we can see any detection of manipulation of the data, and we can produce reports on this basis. So that's released. What isn't released and what will come with the update 1, again planned for sort of February, March time, is the support of electronic signatures. So we need this support for the electronic records, electronic signatures as the basis of the 21 CFR Part 11 compliance. So once we get that update, once we get the technology, our pharma team will then work on the compliance for 21 CFR Part 11. So this will likely follow some months after the update 1. So yeah, sometime after that. The final thing you can see there is around double electronic signatures. So this is the whole 4 eyes principle. So we can have multiple signatures on a audit record. Okay, moving on. One of my favorite new additions, I think this is really nice one, is the introduction of GraphQL with WinCC Unified. So this is now supported. What is GraphQL? GraphQL is a new query language for APIs. So it aims to provide a standardized query language. So you may have multiple systems within a manufacturing environment, and you may not want to consolidate data into one place, but you want to maybe run a report or show a dashboard that pulls in different data sources. So this is a good example where you might use a GraphQL interface. So it's an open source query language and supports multiple APIs. So it's something that was originally developed back in 2012 by Facebook that was made open source in about 2015, and is used quite commonly within an IT integration environment to pull together disparate systems using a standard query language. One of the advantages of it is it allows you to query specific data, so you only pull back the individual bits of data that you really require, rather than let's say like a REST query where you pull back whole data sets. So it can be a lot more efficient. Some of the examples we're showing there that you might want to integrate, maybe if you're doing any sort of machine learning applications, so Jupyter notebooks, maybe you want to use a low-code environment like Node-RED to display data or query data, then GraphQL is a great option here. It's also bidirectional, so we can read and write tags, we can subscribe to tags. So if you want to publish data up to like a data stream using like Apache's Kafka or something like that, we can also use GraphQL. So GraphQL is supported on the PC-based platform and not on the unified panel at this time. GraphQL adds to the openness of WinCC Unified, so we're not limited by any means to GraphQL. It just adds one new option to the methods of accessing data and the openness we already have within Unified. The other ones are things like the runtime openness. So the Unified runtime itself has an openness API. So this supports C#, C++. It supports online and logging tags, archives, alarms, and even the technological hierarchy plant objects. So if you want to access large amounts of data, you want high performant access to large amounts of data, you can code that interface using the runtime openness. We also support a lighter weight option called OpenPipe. So OpenPipe supports C#, C++, JavaScript, and even basic PowerShell scripts. And this gives us direct access to online tags and alarms. And this is a very nice way if you want to write maybe a custom application, you look at a unified panel or something like that, and you want to write something on an application in Industrial Edge, maybe you could use OpenPipe to directly access that data. In addition, we support custom web controls within the visualization environment of the runtime system. So the custom web controls allow us to embed web controls directly into the visualization system. So examples are maybe you want to introduce a visualization of a CAD model directly into the visualization in Unified, or maybe you want to integrate a web-based camera control directly into Unified, then you can use the custom web controls. And finally there we show, field connectivity. Of course, you expect this. This is a standard southbound connectivity into all the major PLC manufacturers, and northbound connectivity up into high-level systems, of course, supported in Unified. Another option we've touched on is the unified view of things. It's a great entry into the world of Unified because you get it with an SM1500. You don't need then any additional license or anything on the SM1500. You just need access to one of the unified engineering packages. So of course we have to say this is limited in terms of the visualization because it's running on a 1500 itself. 1500's primary task is obviously the processing of the PLC logic, but we can now add visualization to that. So this is a great thing if you want to do some commissioning screens, diagnostic screens. We would typically say it supports about 100 tags, about 10 screens, but of course this is a great new addition because we can just then use your phone, use your tablet, log directly onto the 1500, and you can get visualization. Supports, of course, SVG graphics, HTML5 based, Java, all this. So it's a really great addition to the Unified portfolio. Moving on slightly, we'll have a look at our overall energy management product portfolio. So Siemens have a comprehensive end-to-end energy management portfolio that covers from the bottom level, starts at the controls, the field levels. So this starts with S7-1200s, 1500s. It includes energy meters for the ET200 SP, so we can get that data acquisition. A lot of our standard devices like SIMA codes can also acquire energy data directly. Moving up, we've got the SIMATIC Energy Suite, and this is what we'll focus on a little bit around V18. So we've introduced Energy Suite into V18. This allows us to do acquisition and load management. Above then, we've got above that we've got the ability to do visualization directly based on the panel or PC based using the energy efficiency monitor for S7. Over and above that, we have the SIMATIC Energy Manager as a dedicated energy management system. So this can run on site, this can run on Industrial Edge, this can run in the cloud. So depending on your requirements, we can run this on different applications. And our final offering in this energy management portfolio is our SiGreen offering. So this is for capturing of product carbon footprints. So this is something that we use within our own factories, for instance. So we publish the overall product carbon footprint of an S7-1500 CPU, and we use our SiGreen offering to do that. So that is an edge and cloud-based blockchain application where we work with the suppliers in our supply chain who submit the carbon footprint of the individual components and the transportation of these components, so we can produce an overall certification in terms of the product. So the focus here is now on Energy Suite with version 18. So this is something a number of you are probably aware of as an option that we've had, because we have supported it on the comfort panels and we supported it on the WinCC Advanced and Professional options. And we've now ported this over and brought it to WinCC Unified as well. It's great timing. Obviously, energy is a really important topic at the moment. We're working with a lot of customers who have a lot of concern with the gas and electricity prices being what they are. They want to become more efficient. They want to go more green. They want to lower their carbon footprint. And this is a great way of doing it. So a really simple way of providing transparency of energy consumption within a manufacturing environment. It comes with associated blocks in the SM1500 controller, so we can buffer energy data directly in the controller. So if there's any issue around losing connectivity or something like that, that's all handled at the PLC level. We've got a whole lot of standard functionality in terms of the management of data, so we can do energy data and load management. So we can really start turning consumers off depending on loads, depending on peak loads, things like this. So it's not just a reporting tool, it really takes control over the energy as well. So we support the 1500s, we support the software control, we support the open controller, and we just brought over all the functionality we had with the previous versions of Energy Suite as well. Finally, in terms of the functionality in Unified, we have a number of options on the PC-based platform. So we have plant intelligence options. These plant intelligence options allow us to expand the basic functionality, additional licenses and additional functionality we can provide within the Unified environment. First one of those is a calendar option. So we can start looking at putting shift contexts or looking at KPIs depending on different weeks or different suppliers or something like that, and put it into this calendar context that we can build into a unified technological hierarchy. When that's used in conjunction with the next option now, Performance Insight. So Performance Insight, that gives us the ability to produce KPIs based on WinCC Unified. So typical ones, things like OEE and things like that. And we can then use that in context of a calendar, a shift. The two other options we can see are, we have a sequence option. So we can look at controlling sequences. For instance, maybe you've got a food and beverage application, maybe some kind of recipe control that you need. We can use WinCC Unified to control those sequences, but it doesn't have to be, because we're doing it at an HMI level, it doesn't have to be all Siemens PLCs, for instance. So if you want to integrate a Rockwell machine, a Siemens machine, a third-party machine, whatever, then we can use WinCC Unified to control that overall sequence on a line. And we can use that again in conjunction with line coordination. So we can orchestrate recipes and batches across a complete line. So we've got multiple OEMs providing machines into an end user. We can do that line coordination, that line integration out of WinCC Unified there. The final update on the WinCC Unified side is just to make you aware of some of the unified packages we now include. So these are quite nice bundle packages. So they include common options. They start quite low, so you can see it starts on the left-hand side with this 1K option we've got, so 1,000 runtime tags. Includes the parameter control, includes 100 logging tags, and it includes the report execution option as well. So a lot of the commonly used functions bundled together, and we can see on the right this is around about 30% discount when bundled in this package. If you're interested in these packages, then of course speak to one of our value-added resellers, and they'll be able to help you out in quoting these. On the right-hand side, we've got a new option that we've included, this WinCC Unified PC Max runtime. So this includes the maximum amount of tags that we support. So why are we releasing a package that says max tags? Why not unlimited? Well, we all know that unlimited is not realistic. There's always a limit, and as an engineering company, we need to be transparent in terms of how many tags are supported. So, for instance, at the moment, our Max offering supports 600,000 data points within a single server. So quite a nice option, I think. Includes the database option and everything. So if you've got a large system, you're a bit worried about where it could grow to. You want to make sure you've got some financial certainty. Then the WinCC Unified PC Max option is quite a nice one. Another option, Damien touched upon this a little bit earlier as well. So this is a great example about how we pull multiple different aspects of Tier Portal and we gain new value out of it. So this is looking at now the Test Suite Advanced. So this supports the S7-1200 and the S7-1500 and uses the OPC server. And this allows us to do automated system test, either based on PLC Sim Advanced or based on real hardware. So we support software in the loop tests, and we support hardware in the loop tests using the Test Suite Advanced. We support also integration via the PLC Sim Advanced to third-party tools as well. So common ones would be things like SIMIT that would provide the electrical and peripheral model of a simulation. And we also support the integration into things like CAD. So for instance, we can use the Siemens NX Mechatronics Concept Designer, which can then provide the simulation of physics, of kinematics. So when we talk about digital twin from a Siemens perspective, it's when we bring together HMI and control and peripherals and the CAD model into one digital model to provide as an accurate representation as possible to the physical thing that we want to build. So this is a really interesting option in terms of getting more efficient and getting more quality and standardization into our code. The final software option I want to highlight, Damien mentioned this in one of his initial slides, is a completely new offering. So we had this outside of the core tier portal offering, and it's one of the integrated offerings that we have, and this is the SIMATIC Automation Expansion, SIMATIC AX. The first thing to point out is on the top right-hand side of things, of the slide here, it says limited sales release. So you won't find a standard part number for this, and you won't be able to just order this. If it's something that you think could be of interest to you, what we're advising is you engage with us, you engage with one of our partners, let us know what you're thinking, how you'd like to work with it, and if it's right, we can look at piloting it with you. So it's a brand new release. It is version 1.0. It doesn't support everything that it's going to support. It doesn't support all the controllers and everything, but it has very powerful functionality from the outset. What it basically allows us to do is allows us to do library development within a Visual Studio environment. So we get more and more engineers either coming from different application backgrounds, not coming from an automation background, who want to use the functionality of PLC and automation, but don't have those skill sets, aren't interested in learning ladder logic or anything like that, and they're more comfortable working within a Visual Studio environment. This is perfect for them. So this allows us to work within an environment they're comfortable in, use things like integrated unit testing, work with continuous integration and continuous deployment pipelines and tools, integration into repositories like GitHub, and really do all their development in an object-oriented environment. So we work in an object-oriented environment. We can use the unit testing. We're developing libraries on that side. So we've got somebody standardized on the library side of things, deploying into a tier portal environment. And that point onwards, we're more into a traditional automation engineering environment, where we're working with the PLCs and the HMIs and some of the openness and mass engineering tools that we have there. So this is really playing to the strengths of the different types of development and software engineers that we see more and more within our customer base. Okay, so that was the last topic I wanted to cover in terms of the new features and functions that we have within Tier Portal version 18 from a software side of things. I'm now going to pass you back over to Damien to let us know what's coming and wrap things up.
Thank you. So hopefully you can see my screen at the moment, and on that screen you should see a roadmap effectively. And let's take a look at where we are now. We're at Tier Portal version 18 webinar, so that's today, the 8th of December. What we're planning to do in the new year, I've seen there's lots of questions in the chat around modernisation, and I choose the word modernisation carefully between comfort panel applications and unified panel applications. So it's not a migration, it's a modernisation. So we propose to host a webinar in February on this topic, and it will be a detailed engineering-led webinar where we look at the specifics of what's involved in modernising a comfort panel application across to a unified comfort panel application, and how we can embrace the new rich functionality that's within the unified comfort panel portfolio. So we're hoping to run that in February. we'll be sending details out nearer the time for you to register. Like I say, it will be a detailed engineering-led event. So we may have 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning, again, covering the pros and cons of, or sorry, the pros of the technology, and then looking at what's involved in engineering out or engineering across the unified portfolio. And then excitingly, we're going to have some face-to-face, so some in-person events with our value-added resellers in March and April 2022, and we're going to cover the length and breadth of the country. And I'll come to that in a little bit more detail shortly, but that will be effectively be a combination of a technical team and also a team that can give insight into what's coming technology-wise, but also what new functions and features are available to you to meet your automation challenges of the future. And I'll come on to those in a very short while. We then, so that's going to be March and April. May, June time, we'll be hosting a webinar on the benefits of standardization in automation. This will typically be an hour long, and we'll be looking at how standardization can benefit you in meeting your challenges of today, and also what tools are available within TIA Portal to allow you to standardize and test your standardized application code, as an example. And then the third webinar along will be using simulation to reduce your risk and improve your time to market. So, and we'll continue to run webinars every 3 months or so on various different topics. So do please feedback on areas where you think you'd like a webinar, or technologies that you'd like to know more about, or functionality that you'd like to know more about. But we have every intention of running a webinar every 3 months on new features and functions, and how we can help you meet your industrial automation challenges. This is our Underwoods event. So we'll be doing, again, a total of 6 events with our value-added reseller Underwoods at various different locations throughout the UK. So please do register your interest by emailing events@ued.co.uk, or again, scanning the QR code. So these are in-person events that we'll be hosting in conjunction with our partners. So register an interest, come along, have a conversation with us, and my next slide is just a little bit of insight into the different types of presentations or workshop topics that we'll be covering over the event. So this is an approximate agenda. We'd be looking to do a version 18 update, potentially similar to what we've done, but a bit more detail. And then we're going to look at some of the topics that effectively are causing us challenges within the world of automation at the moment, and how we can assist you in meeting those challenges. So we'll have a session on efficient engineering in automation, standardization in automation, simulation for automation, and OT/IT integration to boost productivity and sustainability. And again, you know, we've got another session on migration from comfort panel to unified comfort panel penciled in for these sessions. So this would be a great opportunity to come along and have a conversation with us. So please do register for these workshops. And we'll also be doing 2 events in Northern Ireland and 2 events in Ireland. Dates and venues to be confirmed, but we'll be sending that information out. Again, those will take place in April time.